I used to believe there was nothing more frightening than hearing your baby cry in the middle of the night. I was wrong. There is something worse. It is hearing your baby laugh when you know he is asleep. It is hearing someone whisper his name through a monitor that should only be picking up the quiet hum of a sound machine. It is lying in bed, staring at a glowing screen on your nightstand, and watching an empty nursery while a voice you do not recognize says, "She's awake now." My name is Claire, and this happened 6 months after my son, Elliot, was born. At the time, it was just the two of us, me and him. His father was gone before Elliot learned how to hold his head up. And I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because it matters. Because when things started happening in that house, there was no one else to blame. No one else walking around at night. No one else opening doors. No one else whispering through the walls. Just me, just Elliot, and the baby monitor. The house was small, older than it looked from the outside, and always cold in the wrong places. It was one of those single-story rentals at the end of a quiet street where the porch light flickered no matter how many times you replaced the bulb. The landlord told me it had character, which I later learned was what people said when they didn't want to admit a house made strange noises after dark. But I needed somewhere affordable, somewhere safe, somewhere with 2 bedrooms and a fenced backyard. So I ignored the warped hallway floor. I ignored the faint water stains blooming across the nursery ceiling. I ignored the little scratches around the air vent above Elliot's crib, because I told myself old houses had scratches. Old houses had drafts. Old houses settled. That is what everyone says when they want to feel less afraid. For the first few months, nothing happened. Or maybe it did, and I was too exhausted to notice. New motherhood does something strange to your mind. Days and nights blur together. You hear phantom cries in the shower. You wake up gasping, convinced the baby is choking, only to find him sleeping peacefully. So when the baby monitor first made the sound, I didn't think much of it. It was 2:17 in the morning. I remember the time because I had just fed Elliot 20 minutes earlier and finally managed to crawl back into bed. The room was dark except for the small rectangle of blue light from the monitor beside me. Elliot was asleep on the screen, lying on his back in the crib with both tiny fists near his face. Then the monitor crackled. Not loudly, just a soft pop of static, then a whisper. Shh. I opened my eyes. For a moment, I didn't move. I stared at the screen. Elliot hadn't stirred. The sound machine in his room was still playing soft rain sounds, and I figured the monitor had picked up some distortion from that. Then it happened again. Shh. This time, longer, slower, like someone calming a child. My whole body tightened. I sat up and turned the volume higher. The nursery appeared still. The crib, the rocking chair, the dresser, the little moon-shaped nightlight glowing near the changing table. Nothing moved. I told myself it was interference. I had read about that happening. Baby monitors picking up signals from other houses, radios, phones, other monitors. Except our nearest neighbor was an older woman who lived alone. And the voice had sounded close. Too close. I watched the screen for almost 10 minutes before convincing myself I was being ridiculous. Then Elliot shifted in his sleep. The monitor crackled again, and the same voice whispered, "Good boy." I didn't sleep after that. The next morning, I moved the monitor camera to the opposite corner of the nursery. I checked the closet, under the crib, behind the curtain, inside the laundry basket. I even stood on a chair and looked at the air vent above his crib. Nothing. Just darkness behind the slats and a thin layer of dust. I laughed at myself afterward, not because it was funny, but because I needed it to be. I needed to feel like an overtired mother scaring herself at 2 a.m. So I went to work, picked up Elliot from daycare, came home, made dinner, gave him a bath, and put him down at 8:12. Everything felt normal. Until 2:17. The monitor crackled. My eyes opened before the voice came. This time it said, "Claire." Not loud, not threatening, just my name. Spoken softly through the speaker on my nightstand. I froze. My first thought was impossible. Not fear, not even panic, just impossible. On the screen, Elliot's nursery was still. The crib was visible. His little body was curled slightly to one side. The rocking chair was empty. The closet door was closed. I reached for the monitor with one trembling hand and pressed the talk button by accident. There was a faint beep. Then the nursery speaker clicked on. I heard my own breathing echo faintly from Elliot's room. And then, from the monitor, the voice whispered, "Don't wake him." I threw the monitor across the bed. Then I ran. I ran down the hall so fast, I hit my shoulder on the doorframe. I opened Elliot's door and switched on the light. He was asleep. Completely asleep. His cheeks were flushed, his lips slightly open. One hand wrapped around the corner of his blanket. I stood there, panting, waiting for someone to move. No one did. The room smelled like baby lotion and clean laundry. The sound machine kept playing Rain. And above the crib, the vent looked down at me like a dark little mouth. I took Elliot out of the crib and brought him to my room. For the rest of the night, he slept beside me while I sat against the headboard with every light on. The next day, I called the monitor company. They told me the usual things. Check the Wi-Fi, reset the device, change the password, update the firmware. They said sometimes audio glitches could sound like voices if there was enough static. I asked if glitches could say my name. There was a pause. Then the woman said, "It's unlikely." Unlikely. That word stayed with me. Not impossible, unlikely. I changed the password that afternoon. Then I changed the Wi-Fi name. Then I unplugged the monitor completely and left it in the kitchen drawer. That night, I put Elliot in his crib without it. I told myself I didn't need a monitor in a small house. His room was only 20 steps away. If he cried, I would hear him. And for the first time in days, I slept. Until 2:17. I woke up to static, not from the nightstand, from the hallway. A soft electrical crackling, like something trying to tune itself in. I sat up slowly. The baby monitor was not beside me. It was in the kitchen drawer, unplugged. I listened. The static came again. Then a tiny sound, a lullaby, hummed by someone with a dry throat. I got out of bed and stepped into the hallway. The sound stopped. The house was dark. At the end of the hall, Elliot's nursery door was cracked open. I always closed it. Always. A strip of moonlight lay across the floor. I walked toward it, my bare feet cold against the wood. Every step felt too loud. I reached the nursery door and pushed it open. Elliot was asleep. The room was empty, but the rocking chair was moving just slightly. Back and forth, back and forth. I stood there until it stopped. Then Elliot laughed. Not a full laugh, just a soft little sleepy giggle. The kind babies make when they dream. Except right before he laughed, I heard someone whisper from the corner of the room. That's right. I grabbed him and ran outside. I didn't even put on shoes. I sat in my car in the driveway until sunrise, holding Elliot against my chest while he slept through all of it. The next morning, I called my landlord. He sounded annoyed before I even finished explaining. He said old houses carried sound. He said pipes made noise. He said vents connected rooms in strange ways. Then he told me something I should have paid more attention to. He said, "Just don't start opening walls over it." I asked him what he meant. He got quiet. Then he said he had another call and hung up. That afternoon, I searched the house. Not casually, not like before. I pulled furniture away from walls. I opened cabinets. I checked behind mirrors. I pressed my ear against every vent. When I got to the nursery, I noticed something I hadn't noticed before. The scratches around the vent above Elliot's crib were not random. They formed small curved marks around the screws, like someone had taken the cover off more than once. I got a screwdriver from the kitchen drawer. My hands shook so badly I dropped it twice. When I finally removed the vent cover, stale air breathed into my face. The space behind it was narrow. Too narrow for a person, but not empty. There was something inside. At first, I thought it was insulation. Then I reached in and pulled out a small strip of fabric, pink, faded, a baby blanket. It had been torn into a long ribbon and tucked deep into the duct. My stomach turned. I pulled again. More fabric came out, then a small plastic rattle, then 3 Polaroid photos, old ones. The first showed the nursery before it was Elliot's. Different crib, different curtains, same vent above it. The second showed a baby sleeping. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9 months old. On the back, someone had written, "Maddie, 2:17 a.m. The third photo showed the crib empty, the blanket pulled halfway over the rail, the window open, and beneath the photo, written in the same handwriting, "She heard it too." I took Elliot and left that house within an hour. At least I tried to. My sister lived 40 minutes away, and I drove there with the heater blasting even though it was warm outside. I didn't tell her everything at first, just that I felt unsafe, that something was wrong with the house, that I needed to stay with her for a few days. She didn't ask many questions. She had 2 kids of her own and understood the kind of fear that makes a mother pack bags without folding clothes. For 3 nights, nothing happened. No static, no whispers, no rocking chair. Elliot slept better than he ever had. So did I. And slowly, shame began to creep in. Maybe I had lost it. Maybe exhaustion had twisted normal sounds into something terrifying. Maybe the photos had been left by some previous family with their own strange tragedy. Maybe the voice was my mind filling silence. I wanted that to be true. Then, on the 4th night, my sister knocked on the guest room door at 2:20 in the morning. She looked pale. In her hand was her old baby monitor. She used it for her youngest, who was sleeping down the hall. She held it out to me without speaking. At first, all I heard was static. Then a voice whispered, "She took him away." My sister started crying. I don't remember much after that. I remember calling the police. I remember an officer standing in my sister's hallway, listening to both of us explain something that sounded insane. I remember him checking the rooms, the windows, the attic door. I remember him saying there was no one there. But when he asked if I had any reason to believe someone was targeting me, I told him about the rental house, the vent, the photos, the baby named Maddie. That was when his expression changed. Not a lot, just enough. He asked for the address, Then he stepped outside to make a phone call. When he came back, he told me something had happened in that house 27 years earlier. A baby girl disappeared from the nursery. Her mother claimed she heard a man speaking through the baby monitor for weeks before it happened. No one believed her. The police thought she had hurt the child and invented the voice. But they never found the baby. They never found a body. They never found evidence of a break-in. The case went cold. The mother killed herself 2 years later. Her name was Diane Mercer. Her daughter was Madeline. Maddie. I asked the officer what they found in the house back then. He said not much. Just one strange detail. The nursery wall behind the crib had been opened during the investigation. Inside they found scratches, deep ones, from the inside of the wall, and small handprints in the dust. I didn't go back to the house, not right away. The landlord called me 11 times over the next week. I didn't answer. Then he texted me. One message. You shouldn't have taken anything from the vent. I sent that to the officer. By the time police went to question him, he was gone. His office was empty, his phone disconnected, his records fake. The house, they later told me, wasn't legally his to rent. It had been owned by the county for years after a foreclosure. He had somehow been leasing it under a false name. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. Because it meant someone had wanted me in that house. Someone had chosen me. Chosen Elliot. A week later, I went back with 2 officers to collect the rest of our things. I did not bring Elliot. The house looked smaller in daylight, almost harmless. The porch light flickered above us even though the sun was out. Inside, the air smelled stale, like a room that had been holding its breath. I packed quickly. Clothes, documents, a few toys. I left the crib. I left the rocking chair. Left the baby monitor in the kitchen drawer where I had put it. But when I walked past the nursery, I stopped. The vent cover was back on. I told the officers I hadn't put it back. One of them unscrewed it, while the other stood behind me. Inside the duct, there was a new photograph. Not old. New. Freshly printed. It showed me asleep in my sister's guest room. Elliot was beside me. My sister's baby monitor glowed on the nightstand. On the back of the photo, someone had written, "He can hear him from anywhere." That was the last time I entered that house. The police searched it again. They found nothing. No hidden cameras, no tunnels, no footprints, no fingerprints that matched anyone useful. They sealed the vent, boarded the windows, put warnings on the door. 2 months later, the house burned down. Officially, it was electrical, old wiring, bad luck. That is what reports say when they don't know what else to write. But I saw a photo of the fire online. The whole house was gone except for one wall. The nursery wall, still standing, blackened, charred. And in the center of it, untouched by flame, was the vent above where the crib used to be. I moved twice after that. Changed my number, deleted my socials. I don't use baby monitors anymore. No cameras, no speakers, nothing connected to Wi-Fi. Elliot is older now. He is healthy, happy. He doesn't remember the house. At least I thought he didn't. Until last month. I was washing dishes after dinner while he played with blocks in the living room. The TV was off. The house was quiet. Then Elliot looked toward the hallway and smiled. Not at me. Not at anything I could see. Just into the hallway. I asked him what he was looking at. He said, "The man." My hands went cold. I asked, "What man?" He stacked another block. Then he said, the one who talks when I sleep. I turned off the sink. My whole body felt hollow. I asked him what the man says. Elliot looked at me then, really looked at me. And for a second, he didn't seem like a toddler. He seemed older, tired, like he was remembering something from a place he had never been. Then he whispered, "He says you're not supposed to hear him." That night, after Elliot fell asleep, I sat outside his room until morning. I heard nothing. No static, no whispers, no lullaby. But at 2:17, his bedroom door opened by itself. Just an inch. And from somewhere inside the dark room, a voice whispered, "She's awake now."